And here's an event right in her community that is quite positive, quite uplifting, and doesn't map onto any of her comments.
It is so easy to feel intimidated, to sit down and be quiet and stop fighting for your values, but that's exactly why they use this type of inflammatory language.
But we have a civilization in decline, and we have to stop worrying about being called names.
She's insulting the intelligence of the people in her riding. They should have the right to hear different views and come up with their own conclusion.
For Rebel News here in Toronto, I'm Tamara Ugolini at our Rebel News Live event. It's the second day of events. Yesterday we kicked off with Rumble Live with notable speaker like Donald Trump Jr. And today is our Rebel News Live event where we have a whole panel discussion dissecting what the left purports as controversial conservative topics like gender ideology, medical transition of children, and being general skeptics in a landscape of sweeping censorship. During this time, the local MP for this riding of York Region, MP Yara Sachs, who happens to be the Minister of Addictions and Mental Health, took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to post a statement regarding this event, which she called anti-Semitic, somehow simultaneously Islamophobic, in general denounced it as radical and extreme. Now, let me remind you that this is the MP that posed with her fellow cabinet minister, Melanie Joly, with the founder of the terrorist group Fatah, Mahmoud Abbas, and is now going out with some hypocrisy, calling this event somehow radical and extreme.
And everything was fine until about 2 weeks ago when suddenly the landlord, who owns the underlying land, who has no opinion about anything, suddenly threatened the venue and said, you need to spend $49,000 in extraordinary security on top of what you're doing. You need to hire dozens of security. You need to hire Toronto police. Hang on, aren't they paid for with my taxes? Well, you've got to pay them to come, and you've got to spend thousands of dollars on barriers for all the protesters who are going to be there, and you actually have to buy 2 porta potties for the protesters. Total bill $49,000. It was an unwritten clause, thou shalt not have any guests, that the Liberal government, including the local member of Parliament, Yara Sachs, who says in her tweet, we're not welcome, thou shalt not allow freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of mobility, freedom of speech for anyone that Yara Sachs and Justin Trudeau don't like.
She said, while I'm a supporter of the right to free speech, comma, let me be clear that the vile views espoused by Rebel News, and I suppose by proxy all of you who support us, are not welcome in York Centre, nor do its residents support them.
We're going to get the opinion of some of our speakers and attendees to see what they think about this. Check it out.
You know, I have to just laugh at that because it is the most laughable thing I could possibly think of. Honestly, if promoting the family and marriage and having children and eating real food and supporting good values and morality in society is considered extremist or radical, call me an extremist.
What an insult to the very nice people who are in attendance here today, many of whom are her constituents, to be completely lied about by the MP here. Yara Sachs is not the gatekeeper of what can be said in her riding, although she thinks she is.
I think we should expect that everything we hear is false. And so when you hear an MP spouting off like this in a way that doesn't make any sense, people have to have the ability and the willingness to evaluate the content on its own terms and to assume that's probably not true, is said by a politician. And if you are really a free person, you have to take on that responsibility for yourself.
I think the comment was strictly out of fear by the minister. And I was here yesterday. It was a beautiful event. Great speakers, great topics, great meaningful discussions. And that's all we wanted. That was the whole point of it.
It's honestly one of the more diverse events that you'll see. And so, honestly, she doesn't know what she's criticizing. And here's an event right in her community that is quite positive, quite uplifting, and doesn't map onto any of her comments.
This is just a standard practice. That's all they have. When all you can do is utter ad hominem slurs at people, that means you've already lost the argument. If they had anything intelligent to say, they would say it.
Can you believe that, folks? They're calling this a hate fest, and this is a Yara Sachs, the nincompoop who said that honk honk is an acronym for Heil Hitler. Go back to school on that one, Yara.
How much vitriol do we have to see of honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler?
I was a little surprised because I've been at this event for many years, actually. I've been almost 10 years now that I've kind of been involved with Rebel. I'm openly gay, I'm Métis. It was not any of those things at all. And in fact, I would make the argument that it's a big kind of collaboration of ideas. Not all ideas are necessarily shared by everybody, but it's freedom to express what you feel in a safe environment.
Ezra Levant is Jewish. He comes from a strong, deep Jewish family. The son of Donald Trump, who was the target, she was using that to paint this entire, place as xenophobic. Well, his sister is married to a Jew and is raising their children in the Jewish faith.
These people have done absolutely everything they can to manipulate and twist language. And I think the first step in this fight to regain values, to regain influence and traction in this culture war between good and evil in the Western world is reclaiming the language, right? If they want to call us extremists for that, laugh and accept it as a crazy, crazy title, but just keep telling the truth and promoting goodness in the world.
What would your message be to anybody who sees that kind of rhetoric coming out from the federal government, who then feels intimidated or prevented from attending an event like this or speaking out on conservative topics in fear of being labeled and painted all with the same brush?
That's exactly what they want from you. That's why they do it. And they will continue to do it if you allow it to be effective. So when a liberal lies about you to get you to shut up, that's how you get more of me. That's how I speak louder. They want you silenced. They want you intimidated. They want you to say, oh no, Yara Sachs doesn't like me, so I'm not going to go to events. That should inspire you to go to more events.
If she had come today and engaged with anybody, I'm betting that she would have been warmly embraced and people would have talked to her willingly. And even if there was disagreement, she would not have been mistreated. She would not have been insulted. She might have learned something and people would have walked away all for the better. But if you're not willing to do that, then you miss the opportunity.
These people will use words to basically scare you off so that you don't come to these I found it a very educational event, right? It's funny how they call this like right-wing extremists. It's literally just exposing the truth and the misinformation that the left has been feeding the Canadian citizens for many years now.
This is a kind of retaliation and retribution. It's a kind of temper tantrum that she is throwing over being taken to task for what she herself has chosen to engage in.
I'm not sure if anyone's actually concerned about what a federal cabinet minister says, but we have a civilization in decline, and we have to stop worrying about being called names.
What she's doing is she's trying to silence people who disagree with her, and I think she's upset about a different issue than this conference. And it also, I would believe, she's insulting the intelligence of the people in her riding. They should have the right to hear different views and come up with their own conclusions. So I think hindering the free speech of her riding is kind of scary in a sense.
It is so easy to feel intimidated, to sit down and be quiet and stop fighting for your values, but that's exactly why they use this type of inflammatory language, because when you are called anti-Semitic or Islamophobic or I don't know, whatever crazy obia or ism they want to attach to you these days, which they seem to be all over the place, it's so effective in scaring people into submission, and maybe even not submission, but self-censorship, in saying, I don't even want to admit to myself these are the things that I believe because that might make me countercultural or evil or all these crazy words that they are saying.
I haven't seen any, frankly, I wouldn't be here if this place was anti-Semitic. That would be no point for me to be here. So it's just a propaganda. She's weaving propaganda and scaring people with falsehood.
Many of the attendees here, they don't agree with everything they're hearing, but they're able to engage because everything is actually shared in quite a respectful manner, and the diversity of views is strengthening our democracy, not undermining it. And so for the politicians to make these comments so presumptively, so much presuming before even seeing what it is, it again just does not map on to what we have seen here today.
If you'd like to see our other reporting on this MP, Yara Sachs, you can head over to firesachs.com. At that website, you can also sign our petition calling on the government to fire this minister for her repeated hypocrisy and the nonsense that she espouses. All of that at firesachs.com.